When you sit down to watch State of Origin, you see the players, you see the fans in the stands, and you see the big hits that become a big part of Origin and rugby league folklore in this country. But what you won't see are the hundreds of people who are working behind the scenes to bring it to you on the TV. For most rugby league fans, State of Origin isn't just a game. It is a mega event, and it is literally the biggest show on Australian TV each year. So what does it actually take to put it on air? And how do you prepare to call the biggest game in the country? Let's find out as we go inside Channel 9's State of Origin coverage.
And now it's time.
It's time!
It's time for
Moneyball.
Moneyball.
Are you familiar with the story of Moneyball?
Welcome to Moneyball, the business of sport, a show for sports insiders and for fans that want to know what's really going on in sport. I'm your host, Scott Keenan, and State of Origin, it's one of the great sporting spectacles in Australia. Every year it dominates television ratings with over 4 million people watching each of the three matches. It is huge. It drives mega advertising revenue. It captures national attention, one of the few TV events that still does that. And it creates sporting moments that become part of our culture. And while we spend plenty of time talking about what happens on the field and the players and the coaches, we rarely talk about the broadcast itself, the people who are responsible for turning this football game into a national event. So I've got a really special guest today that's going to take us inside Channel 9's State of Origin coverage. It's Matt Thompson. He is Nine's lead NRL commentator. He also calls swimming, the Olympics, and he has a front row seat to the biggest sporting events in the country, including State of Origin. Matt, welcome to Moneyball.
Nice to be here, Scott.
Yeah, mate, likewise. Great to have you along. And I want to talk to you about what game day looks like, because I've spoken to a bunch of players, people like Josh King at the Storm. He always tells me that, you know, his routine before the game is about a walk and a coffee in the morning, always gets a nap in the afternoon before a nighttime game. Take us to Origin Day. What does your prep look like for one of those big days?
Well, I try and have a nap most days, so Origin Day is no exception. Look, it's an interesting question, actually, because I think with Origin, it's a long day, and I actually wonder how the players deal with it. I've sort of talked to the guys that I have the pleasure of working with about how they cope with it, and everyone has a different routine. But I suppose from my point of view, I try to get most of the work I do, preparation work, out of the way earlier in Origin week, so I can just kind of revise throughout the days leading in. And I try to make game day as seamless as possible, so you can kind of be thinking clearly and not be worried about anything. Depending on where we are, the first game obviously was in Sydney. I'm based in Sydney, so it was quite convenient. If we travel interstate and I'm off to Melbourne next week, obviously I'm sort of going to go a little bit earlier in the week just to get my feet on the ground and make sure everything's cool. And but I think mainly I just try to be chilled out on game day. The audience that watches Origin, it isn't necessarily your average footy crowd, so they probably
That's
need
true.
to know a little bit more about the game. I try to sort of bring a little bit extra to our Origin coverage that we maybe wouldn't otherwise with club footy.
Your energy, I mean, you talk about it being a long day, and it is a performance. You're communicating what's going on to league lovers, but also a lot of newbies that come into the game each Origin series. How do you build up in the afternoon and get yourself up? You have a chilled morning, but how do you get to that big crescendo at the end of the day?
To be honest with you, mate, as soon as the game kicks off, you don't really need to try very hard because the adrenaline kicks in, and it's the pinnacle of what I do. So I think if you can't be excited by that, there's something up. Since I've sort of been doing it, like there's been a couple, well, quite a few, but a couple in particular are the best games probably ever played. So you just get sort of caught up in the moment, and not just me, but Cam Smith and Andrew Johns, who I call Origin with now, they're a bit the same. I think you've seen probably some of the social media coverage of their reactions, particularly Joey, who's out of control. They get swept up in the whole emotion and the brilliance of Origin anyway. So it's not hard to be energized when you're calling that level of the game in front of that crowd. It's what you've always wanted to do. So that's the easy bit, really. It's probably trying just to sort of take a step back from that and making sure you're still calling the game and not getting too worked up from the start, trying to keep something in the tank for when you need it.
Yeah, you talked about research, and I'm sure a lot of time and effort goes into that. Is that preparation happening weeks before, or are you waiting for teams to be named? What are the sorts of things that you're looking out for and preparing for is in sort of the days leading up to the big game?
The thing about Origin, and I genuinely love Origin, the thing I find the most, not the most appealing, but the thing that I try to pay homage to is the history of the game. So if you're scoring a try in Origin, you're joining a special group. If you're playing a certain number of games, and James Tedesco, for instance, I think it's his 26th game coming up. I think he goes to third on the list. That's a significant achievement. So they're the things I quite like to throw into the call. I like to try to have that at my fingertips and actually probably have it more in your memory bank because it's too hard to find within the cut and thrust of the game. It's knowing the basics and just making sure that you've got it right. Probably 70% of the stuff that I prepare I wouldn't even use, but it's good to have it there in case you need it. So
I've seen some of the Premier League callers go behind the scenes and show how they do it. And some of the older fellas who've been doing it a long time still like handwrite notes next to each of the players that are playing. It might be how many goals they've scored, a fact that they find interesting that they want to bring to the call. Like I'm sure you're doing a lot of that as well. Can you take me though to the moments before the game starts? What is happening in your head before that red light goes on and before you start your preamble for the game?
This probably changes from caller to caller, but I put a lot of time and thought into trying to make sure I get my initial remarks right. I want them to suit the occasion. I want them to try and hit the target. I try and identify the key angle that I want to portray. Because I really do feel that when you come to the commentary box, it's game on, everyone's excited. You want to get that bit right. So I think a lot about that. I just want to nail that first bit because I find with me, it's probably like the players. You want your first touch to be a good touch so you can get yourself going in the game. I'm a bit the same. If I can be right on the ball from ball one, I'm ready to go for the rest of the game. So that's kind of the thing that I concentrate on the most. And then when the game starts, I mean, it is a game of footy. I mean, obviously it's a game that means a lot, but you just go through the same process as you would if you were calling any other game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that opening is so important, right? Phil Gould used to do that piece out on the field to really rev everybody up. And I think, we can't forget that it is an entertainment product. And a big part of what you're doing is calling the action and doing the pure sports stuff, but you're also, as part of that in the build-up to it, you're providing entertainment and you're building the excitement towards the game that we're all looking forward to, which I think is maybe like an unsung part of the job that you and some of the other people in the broadcast are doing. For a lot of fans, that like the broadcast just appears, right? It's the coverage starts, the game happens, you've got the chat afterwards, and then it's all over. But there must be such an enormous operation behind it. How many people are actually involved at Nine in putting on State of Origin?
Countless, yeah, countless. And look, it would start to take shape, or at least the ideas would start to be thrown around about what we do with Origin, themes, etc. that our production team do. It'll be 12 months out. So. Yeah. One of the great things that I always remember, you're probably the same, growing up watching Origin, it's all the wonderful shots. It's those cinematic type of shots with effects in the background. Most of those are taken in the lead up to an Origin, but in many instances, it's stuff that you capture from even before the season started. There's all the interview content that needs to be done. All that needs to be cut together. You talk a lot about the business element behind this from a Nine perspective. This is our biggest product of the year. So within that, there's a lot of commercial integration that needs to be considered. I'm sure not that I've ever been part of this, but I'm sure there's a lot of liaising with clients and marketing teams with respect to integrations and stuff like that. So it's a huge, huge undertaking. People can be critical in our industry. It's the nature of what we do, and I think we all accept that. But I can honestly say I've been doing this for a long, long time now. The team that comes together at Nine to put Origin together is a phenomenal team with great, great people. And I truly believe, and not take my part of this out of it, the product is absolutely first class. And I think actually if people had the capacity to peek behind the curtain and see everything that goes into it and how big a beast it is, I think they'd have a greater appreciation for just how good the product is. So to your question, yeah, it's a business-wide undertaking, and I think the network does itself proud each year.
100%. I mean, Nine and State of Origin, they are intertwined and they're so important to each other. Historically, there's been so many great games that we've all watched and loved on Nine, and it's, carried through with all of those different faces and names as well. You're at the top of the list now, calling those games every year, but so many greats that have come before you. But who are some of the, the most important people that viewers never see? You've talked a bit about sort of the storytelling and production preparation, but what about the technical delivery of the match? There must be a lot of people working around you, camera operators, directors, sound technicians? Who are some of those key people, not names necessarily, but the roles that they're doing? Which ones are so important but the viewers never see?
Well, people that come out to the footy and have a tour around what we do, even just for a club game, they're sort of bowled over by the amount of people. The production truck downstairs is jammed full of people. It's essentially, I'm sure a lot of people would have driven past sporting events and seen the big trucks, the big television trucks. Well, they're mobile studios, and they're full of people from producers, the director, vision switchers. You've got people that do the graphics. You've got editors. You've got all the technical people that plug the cables in them, and that's kind of the beating heart of any outside broadcast. From a camera point of view, there'd be 25 camera operators that have their various feeds going into that truck. One of the things that people find fascinating when they come up and have a look at and sort of watch a little bit of the game from the night commentary box, it's a really loud environment. It's a busy environment.
Yeah.
We're obviously all on mic. But behind us, we have a commentary box producer. We've got sort of a secondary producer. The commentary box producer is the one that's always passing me and the other guys cards about where we're going next and what we're doing. The stuff that I have to read out during the game, it gets passed to me. We're communicating with producers, particularly Andrew Johns and Cam Smith at Origin, if they want to see a particular replay. I think that's probably the thing that people are surprised about the most. You normally associate broadcasting with a sterile studio, but it's far from that. And then, of course, there's the sideline people with, it's not just Freddie and whoever else, and Danica or Emma, whoever's down there. It's a whole cast of people down there that are assisting them. That's a sort of different hub altogether. So it's hundreds of people.
Do they have producers working with them on the sideline as well?
Yeah, there's a producer. And then, the pre-game interviews, there's got to be a floor manager, producer that looks after all of that.
Lighting.
Yeah. So it's hundreds and hundreds of people. And Origin, it's all hands on deck.
I can imagine. It's pretty amazing. And, things like mixing the sound live. One of the things that's so great about Origin is the big hits, right? The contact. And in rugby league, hearing that on TV is so important. And so I'm sure there's somebody, they're mixing that sound live as well and getting those great sounds, which is so important. I was going to ask you about, you said you've got producers and directors in the box there with you, helping to make sure you're all on the right path. Is there like a formal, production planning meeting that you and Joey and Cam might sit in on before the game, or is it more informal the way you guys do it?
Not so much from our commentary point of view, but certainly everything that goes around the game. Yeah, there's a proper structure there. I mean, our rundown for Origin would be 40 pages. You're on air at 7 p.m. You're off air at 11. It's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, it's a big job. So everyone needs to be on the same page. But from a commentary point of view, we're sort of self-sufficient. I mean, I'm sort of directing the traffic, and the guys we all fit in together. We've sort of got the formula down pat. That's the one thing that's kind of up in the air. You don't really know what's going to happen, so you can't necessarily plan for it. But yeah, we're kind of left to our own devices to cover things as we see it.
That's great, because I was going to ask about that, whether you have a lot of freedom to call the game as you see fit. You've got two guys there you're bouncing off of, and the team on the sideline as well, who are bringing information to you and to viewers about what's happening with injuries or interchange or other things that are happening on the sideline there. But you feel you've got freedom to kind of call it in the way that you want?
I do, yeah. But I've got a sort of philosophy on what my job is, and I sort of see myself as the conductor in many respects. I've got an important role to play in describing what's happening, but I am only describing what the players are doing. And I think good commentary is being able to convey effectively what's actually happening on the field and championing what the players are doing. I think that's what people want. They want you to give context to what's actually happening out there. It's not to give opinion. That's why I've got two absolute champions that are sitting next to me. That's the other critical part of my job, is being able to give them time to talk and trying to make sure that they're conveying the point that they want to make. And just to keep things going with energy, with pace, and nailing the big moments. I mean, Origin's synonymous with big moments over all the decades. They're the things that are always front of mind, whether it's a club game at Cronulla or whether it's an Origin game at Suncorp Stadium. Those principles still apply. I mean, you don't know if it's going to be 40-0. You don't know if it's going to be a 14-12 thriller. So you've kind of got to have experience and judgment as to how you go about broadcasting that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon as well that the best commentary always feels really effortless, right? So there is a craft involved in it, and you're at the top of your game. You talked about the other fellas there that you are commentating with. Having done it with them more and more and more, you get a better flow and work together more confidently. I'm sure if you think back to your first Origin or your first call on nine with them, you probably look back and go, "Oh, that felt a bit clunky," or "Geez, I'd do that differently now." But how has that evolved over time, and how do you know when to speak and when to let the other boys come in with what they want to say?
It's just evolved over time. I think it's like anything. It's like any combination. Even it's a sporting team. The more you play together, the better you get. So I called my first game, first NRL game on nine. I think it was 2013. So I've been doing it a long, long time now at nine, and we've worked together. For hundreds, if not thousands, of games now. You just develop a rapport. You kind of just know. I mean, I know I can bring them in. They kind of know when I'm winding up and when they can jump in. Uh, we very, very rarely talk over one another, so it's just that sort of dynamic that's built up over time, and it's really only time together that enables you to be able to do that. I suppose the longer you spend together, the better you kind of all work in together, and I feel like we've got a pretty good formula now.
Yeah, it's fantastic. What do you reckon is the biggest misconception that fans might have about commentators? Maybe things that people say to you like, "Oh, is it like this or like that?" Like, what do things like that come up?
Uh, Allegations of bias would be the biggest misconception. It's funny. I reckon after game one the other week was the first time I hadn't received a barrage of messages from people saying that you're clearly from Queensland or clearly from New South Wales. And the funny thing about it is I'm expecting to get a barrage of messages, but normally there's 10 that say that I'm clearly a Queenslander and 10 that say that I'm clearly a New South Welshman. So I kind of feel like I've got the balance right. But I can sit here humbly and truthfully say to you that I'm born and raised in Sydney, but I have no affiliation to either state. I've actually called a lot of footy in Queensland over the years, and I have a great appreciation for the special place that Origin holds in their hearts. And similarly, grew up like anyone, passionately supporting the Blues. And in my, from a misconception point of view, like when you're in my position, you don't have the luxury of being able to support a team because what you want is a good game that you're able to convert into a good television product. And that's the main thing I'm thinking about. I mean, the drama, I'm actually just here at Sydney Olympic Park in between sessions for the swimming. So just across the road here, I mean, the drama that you saw at the end is the perfect scenario for an Origin game from a broadcast point of view.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what if my bias sits anywhere, I just want a good game, and a bit of drama and people.
I agree, and I get the sense you're a bit like me, right? You grew up loving footy. We both did. For me, it's so funny. I grew up, in Penrith, massive Panthers fan. But through my work, I've had a lot to do with the Newcastle Knights. I've ended up following them. I've become mates with one of the boys that played there, and he's now at Melbourne. So I'm watching Melbourne games. Like I'm just in for a good game of footy these days, more than anything else. One thing that does fascinate me, Matt, about these big games is the big moments are often what people remember, and they kind of remember not just the moment but the call. And it is important. One of the great moments. I got to know Rabs a little bit through my very early career and loved hearing him call games. The Mark Coyne Queensland try, that's not a try, that's a miracle. I mean, that will go down as one of the great calls. The way you've talked about how you work, you're not sitting there scripting moments that you're going to call. You're calling what you see. But what is the most memorable Origin moment that you reckon you've called so far?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, firstly, I think that's Rabs's best call. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff with respect to the history of Origin through a podcast that I've been doing for the last 5 years called Stories of Origin. And
you won an award for that recently.
Yeah, we won Best Sports Podcast, the Australian Audio Award.
Congratulations.
Great, thank you. It's actually great to be able to walk down memory lane. Like we have the access to all of that archive stuff at Nine, built up over decades. That's such a great story, that miracle try story, and to hear be able to talk to the players and break that down like that. To me, that's the essence of Origin. There, and it comes up year in, year out. I think that's his best call. That's an example of somebody just calling, sort of understanding what's happening in the game and nailing the big moments. So, and that's, as you say, but you're right. Nailing the moments in Origin are what matter. Look, the two games that stand out. Was the decider of 2022 when Ben Hunt caught the ball and ran away. Funny story about that. That was my first series in the big chair. And, if you go back and listen to that, you've got Cam screaming, "Go Dozer," and you've got Joey, almost on the verge of having a complete
Conniptions.
meltdown.
Yeah.
But they were so excited that Cam got up and ran out of the commentary box, and Joey threw his lip mic across the commentary box. And I was actually left there by
Wow.
myself for about 15 seconds in the biggest moment of the series. But that's the passion that Origin brings out. That was big. And I think the best game I've ever seen was the decider of 2024, when Bradman Best scored the try that broke the deadlock. Like, there'd been no, I think it was the 58th minute or something they scored. Like, there was no try for best part of an hour. And I called that well when I watched that back. And then New South Wales ended up, they were the third New South Wales team to win a decider up there at Suncorp Stadium. So Suncorp Stadium brings out the best in the teams. It's an amazing venue on an Origin night. So they're the two that stand out. But I've been fortunate, outside of footy, having done the Olympics in Paris in 2024, they were big moments. Like, to call 7 Australian gold medals was
Incredible.
huge. And I did put some preparation into that. With swimming,
Bloody hope so. Jeez.
well, with respect, sorry, I put some preparation into what you might say if an Australian wins, because I think Origin's huge, but an Olympic gold medal is never forgotten. And I put a little bit of work into what I might say if Ariane wins, or if Kaylee wins, or McAvoy wins, and it's being able to live at that.
Yeah, those moments aren't just remembered; they're replayed over and over, aren't they? They become a part of our national culture and identity.
And I've sort of been, until that point, I've been sort of anti preparing a line as such, but I think that kind of worked. So I do put a little bit of preparation into what you might say if this happens, and that kind of helps, particularly at the end of an Origin game. Like I think I said last year, Queensland have risen from the dead again. I thought that was an appropriate way to sum up that series. So the highlights is what are played over and over again. No one sits down and really watches the whole game back. So you don't really have any choice. You've sort of got to get it right when the moment counts.
Yeah, and the last few years when media companies have been showing inside the commentary box, showing us those calls back on social media. I don't know if you like watching yourself back on video, but some of those moments, like you just sort of explained with, analysts and former players throwing microphones across the commentary box or up and about and cheering. And you don't, especially on a TV or a radio call, you don't hear the former players really jockeying or getting upset about their team, because sometimes they hold it back verbally, but they're having those emotions, and being able to get to see that is amazing. It is one of the biggest properties in the country. Over 4 million people watch each game. It's so massive, Origin, and I'm sure you thrive on that pressure and you enjoy it. And it is such a valuable property for Nine and the NRL as well. Negotiations underway now for the NRL media rights beyond 2027. A lot has been said about a bunch of different media companies that are interested in all of the league, in some of the league, in State of Origin. I know Nine, wants to stay with Origin and to stay with the NRL. It's so important to the business. Why do you think Origin should stay with Nine beyond 2027? What do you love about it so much as a caller?
Oh, look, these are obviously matters that are dealt with by people that are far more intelligent than me. All I can sort of say about it is I know how much, not just Origin, but the sport means to Nine. And conversely, I know how much Nine has worked to elevate the sport to what it is now. And I think it's a long-standing relationship that has really served the game well. And you think back to the early 90s is when Nine first took over. Like, it's been something that's been forged in decades of working together. I think both organisations work hand in glove really well. It's a big business now, and obviously the league's got to do its best to try and maximise revenue with new teams, etc. But it matters. Like, footy matters to Nine. It's part of who we are as an organisation. It's the wide world of sports. It's the home for many, many different sports, but at the top of it, it's rugby league. So I know our organisation wants it to stay where it is, and I'm obviously hoping personally that it very much does, because we want to continue what's been a really successful relationship for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it performs so well, right? It's not just because of the NRL and the product; it's because of how it's broadcast too. I think Fox and Nine have a lot of success that they can sort of share in, having delivered, an incredible product on TV, and for Nine, all those great games and State of Origin and grand finals over such a long period. It's been a big part of that success for sure. Technology obviously is changing both in the broadcast and in how it's shot and shown back to us through our TV screens and our mobile phones. That technology is changing so quickly. There's a lot more data in the broadcast as well. What's the biggest change that you've seen over the last sort of 5 to 7 years in the way that you're doing your job? And is there any technology coming that you're sort of seeing down the pike that you think, wow, this is changing quickly?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I suppose with my job, it's sort of what I do isn't influenced all that much by technology, but I think you'll see a lot. You have seen a lot of changes to sort of digital integration, to augmented reality. There's a lot more of that coming in. If you look back to the opener of the first Origin game, Brace was standing out on the field with like a fake Munster and a fake Cleary next to him. That sort of stuff and we've used a lot of that technology through Olympic coverage, etc.
It looks
I think
good.
you'll see a lot more of that being integrated from a sales point of view too.
Yeah, right.
I think they're the obvious ones that stand out. But Scott, as far as technology goes, I'm probably not the best person to talk to because, to be honest with you, I barely even use AI, and it's occurred to me this week sitting there at the swimming, sitting next to Arnie and Thorpe. I'm the only one who doesn't. So I probably need to catch on.
Mate, I'm sure you pick that up along the way, no doubt. But you just keep doing what you're doing and do it well. A couple of quick fire questions before we wrap up. Most underrated person in an Origin broadcast? Is there somebody that's really carrying the can that never gets their flowers?
Our executive producer, Sean Burke's been a part of the network at Nine for, I think it's his only job. I think he's been there since he was a teenager, and he's now the head of our rugby league department, but also plays a hands-on role with putting together broadcasts. And he's an absolute whiz. I've got a great relationship with Sean. He's a fantastic guy, great leader, but just a calm, reassuring presence for everyone. So it would absolutely be him. He's he sort of underpins everything we do. So I'd have to say it's Sean. Because the stars that are out on camera are the ones that get all the plaudits, but people like him are the ones that put all the broadcasts together. So definitely Sean.
You said you really enjoy calling from Suncorp Stadium. Is that your favourite stadium or sporting venue to work from?
Not necessarily, but there's something special about an Origin night at Suncorp. Like even my New South Wales affiliated colleagues would admit that, like a decider at Suncorp. I reckon even the New South Wales players would say that, past and present. The stadium is quite remarkable in that it's pretty much just built on top of itself. So you've got that atmosphere that just stays in and bounces around the stadium. And of course, there's the roar of the raucous Queenslanders on an Origin night, which is pretty unbelievable. So I think there's something pretty special about that. But I'm down to Melbourne to do another Origin game at the MCG. The last one I did there was 2024, where the Blues, I think they led 30-0 or something at halftime, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a smash up. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's special to be at grounds like that, being at such a wonderful place. Allianz is a great ground, the new Allianz.
Yeah, I'm a fan of those new grounds. I was at Parramatta Stadium recently to see the Tigers and the Panthers. Poor old Tigers couldn't get a point. But those new steep stadiums where it's all enclosed, you're right on top of the play. Suncorp's a bit like that too. I'm actually getting to go to State of Origin 3 this year, which is I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of those, like a Campbelltown or a Leichhardt. They're okay. Shark Park, I could leave, definitely give that a miss. It's a horrendous stadium. But those new stadiums, I think the closer you can get to the action, I mean, it obviously is also great for TV with sound too. But as a fan in the stand, that's what I love, mate. Can we wrap up with one piece of advice for aspiring commentators, young people maybe coming through who are thinking about that line of work? Sports obviously it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're going to see more people wanting to do jobs like the one you're doing. What's a bit of advice you could give to somebody who might be looking to that for the future for themselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Look, you just got to persevere, I suppose. I mean, I think back to when I was young. I mean, I had the luxury of sort of being able to realize in myself when I was pretty young that I wanted to pursue a career in the media. Whatever direction that took, I wasn't entirely sure, but I probably thought deep down I'd like to to go into broadcasting, and it just takes a lot of hard work and a lot of grafting, But
A lot of door knocking.
definitely, yeah. But I think the landscape's a lot different now. I remember like when I was in high school, like I had the luxury of being able just to write a letter away to a radio station and just asking to come in and do some work experience, and they said yes, and even just volunteer time at television stations. I don't know whether you're able to do that so much now.
I did exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and learning on the job's the best thing. Like just do as much of it as you can. Probably, like I think there's a lot of sort of online organisations. One of the things that I loved was doing community radio back in the day. Do they still have community radio?
Yeah, it is still around. I don't think there's as many of them as there used to be, but yeah, I mean that was where I met you many moons ago. Calling Sydney Kings games for a community radio station back around 2000. I mean those sorts of opportunities. I'm not sure if they're around as much, but I suppose social media now. Like, what would you do differently? I reckon I'd probably film myself calling games and post that and practice that way and post that and try to make connections that way these days. I don't know. What would you do differently?
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose that's kind of the social media element has taken that sort of the personal nature of it out a little bit, hasn't it? But I suppose by the same token, you're able to broadcast to your own audience there.
Yeah, it gets you in front of people.
Yeah, definitely. But look, just learn as much as you can. In this industry, it's more hands-on. I believe you can learn to do what I do by sort of just repetition, call stuff, be accurate, know your stuff. Like don't just go in and pick up a guide and just try and call a game. Like be prepared to do it. I find even now, if I'm not as prepared as I normally would be, I don't call as well for whatever reason that is. So know your stuff, and if it's something you really want to do, you've got to stick at it. Like it's a long slog. So be prepared.
Well, mate, you're reaping the rewards of all of that hard work over many years. You're at the top of live sports at 9, leading the NRL, swimming, Olympics, so much more, mate. Congratulations on all of your achievements and the work that you're doing at 9. Can't wait to see you calling more State of Origin games throughout this year and next. And thanks so much for taking us behind the scenes of what it's like for you calling a State of Origin match. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, mate. Good to talk to you. Thanks.
Moneyball.
Let me know in the comments what you think. Geez, that was a really interesting look inside the technical side of things, how you prepare yourself for such a big event that is watched by so many people across the country. What do you love about Origin, and why do you think people keep coming back to watch this product on 9? It's often described, State of Origin, as Australia's greatest sporting rivalry, but it is also one of the great sporting television productions. It's a broadcast that's measured in millions of views, hundreds of staff, dozens of cameras, and years of experience that they bring to the game. And the thing that's important is that they are making decisions every second, because while the players create the moments, and there is no game without the players, of course, so obviously, but broadcasters help to turn those moments into memories. And for a few hours each year, State of Origin becomes more than a football match. It becomes a shared national experience. So, again, a massive thanks to Matt for taking us inside State of Origin here on Moneyball. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe for more breakdowns on the business of sport. You can follow the show on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've got a question for me about the business of sport, you can email anytime. askmoneyball.show@gmail.com. Send it in and it's just me. I'll answer it. I'll read it and I'll get back to you. Really keen to hear from you, and thanks so much for listening and watching. Remember too, if you want to know what's really going on in sport, you got to follow the money. I'll see you next time.